Hey everyone, I'm Tiffany Blackman and welcome to My So-Called Fabulous. How are you doing? I hope you're all well and safe and healthy and happy. And today I've thought about this, when I do these solo podcasts and when I do these, I want to reach you and something that I've been thinking about, and this encompasses our life all the time, but especially now, and it's fear. It's fear and it's real. And, there can be, I am so afraid of snakes. Are you afraid of snakes? I'm afraid of snakes. But I'm really afraid of a lot deeper, and we'll get into that so much. But fear is so prevalent right now. Right now with the COVID, and I'm going to hit it. And one of these days, I'm going to come on here and not talk about this. Isn't that going to be a glorious day? I cannot wait for that. But the COVID, there's so much fear. Okay, there's the fear. I will tell you what I think my and your feelings are. I'm just assuming here. My fear is sickness. Maybe not so much. I went through this phase. Well, I'm not afraid of getting it. Well, you know what? If I get it and then pass it on to my family, I would feel pretty irresponsible. And so there's that fear, the fear of the sickness across the United States. I won't even go into the numbers because I actually don't know the numbers today. It's up and down and the curve and all that. And we feel so sorry for you, New York, and we pray that we keep this under control. But the number one thing is the sickness. It is what it is, and we don't want to pass it. Paul, my producer, we were talking, he didn't see his mom, and we didn't see our families for Easter because we're afraid of passing it to people that have underlying conditions or older. And I'm, of course, older as well, but there's that. You know what else there is? And the economy. I mean, come on. My husband is, I could say he's an economist, certainly, and a historian. And he wakes up every day, and I do listen to his philosophy, and I'm going to call it rant, and he just keeps saying, Tiffy, our people do not want to see a depression. We don't need food lines, and we already are feeding people that need help. The Tarrant Food Bank was on the national news the other night. So there's the economy, and are we going to get our economy back? How quickly? There's so many sides of the fence and so much fear in each of these decisions. Lawmakers, the CDC, I can't even imagine the responsibility and the fear that you fear every day. You're looking at numbers and statistics and all of those things that are involved in making decision. Do we open up our state again here in Texas? Georgia's opening their state again. And, there's so many different opinions on that. And how quickly do you open? And are we going to get sick? Are we going to rebound? And, the fear of, there's so many there's fear, oh my goodness, are we going to have football in the fall? Oh my goodness, are we going to live? There's different aspects of our fear. I was reading an article the other day, and it was talking about why is alcohol, why is it essential? So it's kind of funny. You see all the memes on social media about we're going to become alcoholics, and how many units of alcohol can you go through this entire thing? And we're staying home, and when does 5 o'clock really start? But I was reading exactly why they kept alcohol as essentials, and the reasoning in this article was because of underlying addictions, abuse, and disorders. So let's say we have someone that is an alcoholic. We're going to cut them off cold turkey. Now, I have a friend that has recovered and tried to go on cold turkey by himself, and it didn't work out real well. So thank you for those of you, the lawmakers and everyone that's thinking of the underlying issues, because if you don't have alcohol to go to, do you go to drugs or some other type of addiction? Are we going to get out of this abuse? Are we going to have disorders? I mean, what are we going to have after this is all over? So, you know, there's certain people that have that advice of, that's not a good idea to have alcohol as essential. Now, I'm not saying, trust me, I'm not saying things. I just thought this was extremely important and forward-thinking in the future of people that do have addictions and disorders and how they would cope. We have a big state. We're right in the middle of the state in Fort Worth. And can you imagine having to drive out of the state to Oklahoma or Louisiana? I mean, have you thought about that, Paul?
No, I don't want to.
I know. Isn't it interesting?
It's very, very insane. I mean, to think about, you know, when you talk about alcohol, you know, that's, you know, speaking of fear, I didn't take my first sip of alcohol till I was 21.
You
right?
didn't?
Did not even a sip, because my family has a long line of alcoholics.
Wow.
And because of that, I had a 50-50 chance. I mean, of course, everybody has a 50-50 chance of saying yes or no.
Sure.
Right. But it was right there.
It was in your face.
It was in my face,
fear.
and it was in my family. And yes, the side that I was with is recovering and hadn't had any alcohol in a long time. But we have that in our body, that addiction personality, or that addictive gene-ish, whatever you want to call it.
Right. It's in your DNA.
It is. And I didn't do it because I wanted to make sure that I was of sound mind and mature enough to be able to handle the repercussions.
Wow. That's
incredible. So I didn't. But I didn't take a sip until my 21st birthday.
And you went to Tech.
I went to
you
West
did not.
Texas
You went
A&M. West Texas A&M.
I keep putting Tech on you.
There were more cows than people there. So, you know, it was
right.
You know, but I did that because of things like this. It's like, I can't imagine the people that shouldn't be drinking right now.
Exactly.
What do? You know, I mean, there's no real coping mechanism right now except for sitting at home.
Right. You know, and I thought that was so, I talked to Greg about it. I said, can you imagine the forethinking? I mean, of that, because, you know, when all this happened, everyone's like, oh my goodness, liquor stores are open. Are you kidding? They're open around the clock, blah, blah, blah. But then I read that and I thought, okay, because you talk about, you know, if you're an addict, or if you have an issue, how are you going to cope? You're not going to go to the hospital. I mean,
you really can't.
Therapy. And so
groups are closed down.
Yep.
Places that you would normally go to take your mind off of those things are all down.
Right.
You know, and that's why right now mental health is so huge. You know, check on your friends, check on your family, check on everybody.
Sure.
You know, because there are people out there that not only may not be working, but they may be dealing with deeper things.
Absolutely.
Because now is that fear.
Right.
You know, are we going to get out of this? When will we get out of this? How will we get out of this? It's like the who, what, where, when, whys, and hows of the world right now. And that's scary.
It is scary. It is scary. So during these times, the fear being the sickness, the underlying issues, just like I was talking about, the economy, and then of course we are all talking about our business and where we are business wise. We see the people that have lost their jobs, and I do see some jobs created too. I'm seeing some interest and a lot of business opportunities are popping up as well, right?
And I do agree with that so much, and I hate to see people hurting so bad, but we talked about this on the last episode about the anxiety level. I'm an overperformer, an overachiever on the anxiety, right? So whenever things go bad, I'm looking for things to make things good.
Right.
So right now, we're sitting at home doing nothing. The people that are doing nothing.
The people that are doing.
The people that are here doing nothing, that have to be in the house because they cannot work by the mandations and all that kind of stuff. Learn something. You learn something new. Perfect an art that you've always wanted to do, because sitting in this constant state of fear without any action towards having a resolution or a solution, you just go into this hole of fear.
Right.
So learn these new things. If you've always wanted to paint and you're good at it, but you need to learn other things, learn it now.
Do it now.
Because now is the time. And then who knows, that could develop a new career. That could develop a new way of income or that side money. I'm always looking for ways to make money. And there are so many ways. This is an entrepreneur's world.
Right.
And especially right now, it gives you time to know it, to think about it, and plan.
Just do it.
Just do it.
That's right. So I was saying last when I did the anxiety podcast, my friend, I was kind of saying, okay, well, we could get future educators out of this because everyone's homeschooling their kids. And my girlfriend called and said, have you lost your mind? I'm like, well, I thought, maybe, I don't know, but yes.
Maybe future people in therapy.
This is true. Absolutely.
Nothing wrong with therapy, but
That's
we
right.
may be creating a bunch of new clients for these therapists.
That's right. And I talk to my dad often, and my dad I talked to him last night, and he is being good because my dad is extremely social. And I said, Dad, are you taking this seriously? And he said he is. And it makes me so happy. My friend, I talked to her before the podcast, and she said, she feels horribly because her dad is with his buddies. They go to Whataburger and have coffee, X number of mornings a week. And that's his thing. And he hasn't seen his people since the beginning of March. So, we've got this fear, this anxiety, and this loneliness too. We kind of are this lonely, although there's 3 and a fur baby in my home, there's the loneliness too. I mean, we all are just kind of, we're all together, but we're kind of out there on an island right now, I feel like.
Well, you're so used to having time to yourself, to get away. It's like, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And right now, I don't want to be around anybody. You know what I mean?
We've had enough fondness.
This fondness is
got to go.
I'm going to trade fondness in for separation.
That's right.
But I mean, it's real because whenever you're taken away by other priorities and other things, you're taken away from what you truly want to do, it makes you miss things, and it evens out the kind of the insanity level,
right?
Or it evens out that side of you, because being in the house all the time with the same people, that can get a little old, and it can get annoying. You can get angry, sad. Sure. I mean, this is fueling a lot of bad, I say bad, but more uneasy thoughts, different things and different feelings. So that time away is nice.
That's right.
So we're having to adapt to something that most of us have never been through.
Right. And from week to week as we record podcasts, and it's tough because Paul is in a separate room from me. We have a glass between us. I'm sitting here alone. I want people on my show. I want to have people in here and hug and laugh and toast wine glasses, but we're in separate rooms and it just seems odd. And we're a hugging nation. We are a lovable hugging nation. And Greg and I were talking about this yesterday morning at breakfast. We always have our early morning little chats, and we were talking about, and we had this last week in the podcast, how will business change? And I have already witnessed a friend of mine that has, she can do her work virtually. We've proven that we can do it. I just wonder now, commercial real estate, do we really need office? And I hate saying this because I have people in commercial, I have family members in commercial real estate. And how much do we need? And I've worked for companies before where you better be there from 8 to 5, noon to 1, or noon to 12:30. You take your lunch. And that may be a little passé after this is over.
It's weird to think about, but this has kind of shined light on our essentials and non-essentials.
Are you kidding?
And we're sitting here thinking, it's like, you think about what could change after this, and it's like movie theaters. And I think I'm not sure if we talked about this,
yes,
but like,
we did.
Will they even come back?
But they're opening in Georgia.
Right. But
yeah,
with everything opening, you have to think about, like, of course, where people are still going to, a majority of people, I feel, will still be cautious. So, I mean, were you just going to have like bars where you have booths that are 12 feet apart, or like, it's like, what's going to change?
I know.
But I think that if we don't allow ourselves to get so deep in the doldrums of how bad this is, and we look for silver lining because it's everywhere. Silver lining is everywhere in this. I mean, I've gotten new business ideas, and people I'm talking to are being forced to think outside of the box. And I believe, I know you've seen that statistic where in the last, economic, hardship, what was it, 2008, right?
Right.
What, Uber was created. Things like that. I just went on a blank on what else was created, but some of the biggest businesses right now.
Right, Amazon or Google or something.
Yes,
like that,
it was something like that.
One of those.
Huge. I mean, there was a list about 8 or 9, 10 of them. And you think about it, it's like those are the people not coming up with something like Google or, Uber, but thinking about life like that. Think about the changes that could possibly happen and how we need to transform and evolve our businesses.
Exactly.
If we do that, we will not fail.
Nope.
And we will not have the issues that we will have if we don't plan for the potential changes.
Absolutely, because the changes will be here.
I know they're going to come.
It's going to. It's again after we talked about it last time. It was the changes after 9/11. I mean, we had no idea, but now we're so comfortable with all the changes. It's perfectly fine.
Comfortable, like not being able to meet them at the gate and hug. I used to hug my grandma when she'd come into town.
Absolutely.
But now we got to wait until she's at the baggage claim, find a parking spot, try to figure it out.
Right, exactly. Oh gosh, I know. Different. So back to our fear. So I did a little something. So usually I'd put this on social media and take a little poll, but I actually went to the people that I know and love. And I decided, it's kind of last minute, to do this and to kind of take a poll on fear and what your main fears are. Like I asked for the top 3 fears. So I started out this morning early, with my trainer. We were online together, but I'm going to just read to you some of the fears. And there's some of them, it's just kind of interesting because I started in the single digits, age 9, and went past 70. So I just want to read these to you because it's just so interesting to me. You all know the number one of most of the demographics, the age groups, the number one is death. And, that's something we can't control. That is certainly there. But, how is the death? We had a couple that were talking about, it was that crash, the car crash, but the majority, it is cancer. And I'm so excited at some point to have a Cancer Society on here to talk with us. I'm just so excited to talk to them someday, and what a great organization. But cancer and the fear of it, and many of you have listened to my episode of losing my mother to cancer, and it was nasty. I mean, it was a nasty, horrible, long 4 years of horrible. And I've talked about this a lot with different people, but cancer. If I were to get it, I want it to be done. I really do. I watched my mom suffer for 4 years, and then she rebounded for just a minute, but for 4 years she suffered quite a bit. And I would just want to kind of go away and I can't even. I won't talk politically about that, but I just wouldn't want it to drag out. My sister asked me this one time. She said, would you prefer just a boom, it's over, or, you could plan it out? I'm like, can I just have both? Just kind of like somewhere in between. So, but anyway, that death is in cancer is definitely the number one fear amongst all demographics, with the exception of my little precious friend that's 9 years old. Okay, just have to read these in the order. It was number 1, doing a backflip. There you have it. Okay. The dark, and then of course ghosts. So there's those. And do you all remember when you were 9, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and your fears? I mean, it wasn't what mine was at this time. I mean, they're not the same. So we have so many different fears. So then I went into the 20s. I creeped into the 20s and so different, male and female. So my daughter, Kennedy, she says it's the fear of the unknown. bad things can happen. And we talked about her anxiety with this and, never finding her purpose in life. And another one for her was being abducted or kidnapped. And, I guess growing up, I was wondering this morning, now, why haven't I really worried about that? The only exposure I had to kidnap or being abducted, the only exposure I had growing up was a movie like, Friday the 13th. That's the only one, because I really don't watch those movies. Okay, wait, I'm going to have to stop here. Those of you that told me to watch Ozark during the pandemic, thank you. No, thank you. Okay, so I'm watching the most dark. Okay, it's good. I'm not. Okay, Jason Bateman, you are incredible. I mean, your group of writers, I'm just going to go ahead and give it to you. But that is so dark. It's so dark, but it's so good. I don't know what to say. I'm just like in the middle. But I did hear from a friend of mine last night that comedy has gone up in ratings like crazy. Well, I missed that, okay? I went straight to Ozark, so I'm on season 3. But, there's that fear, and like, why am I watching this? But I'm in now. I'm not backing up. But, I mean, incredible producer and a talent. But so I sidebar there. So if I was watching Ozark when I was in my 20s, I would be scared to death. Oh my gosh, that would just scare me. But what we had growing up, it was movies, and we didn't have social media. There wasn't anything like that. So I'm wondering if this fear is caused from so much media. I remember, I cannot remember the war it was, but remember seeing it on television when I was in high school, junior high school, and I should know this. But seeing the bombs go off, just seeing on the TV, and it was nothing. It was just bombs going off in the back, like bright lights, and that scared me. That was a fear in my early years. But that's all we have. So I look at these kids. I look at everyone on their phones or their devices constantly at all of the information that's being fed. I can't imagine if you have a young mind, what's going through your mind. So also, I have a little in the older 20s, a gentleman that's in my life that, number 1 and 2 unequivocally is cancer and dying young of cancer and just getting it. That was just this huge anxiety and, how it would change your life and your family's life so drastically. So then we go into the 30s. I was thinking, okay, 30s, let's see. I had one say, public speaking, that's it. Okay, you know what? That is a serious fear. It's like, I am going to not negate this, but a fear of heights. I went on the Empire State Building one time. I would not get off the elevator. And I said, one time is one time. So I kind of do this, and I'm not afraid of public speaking. Paul and I was talking about, like, we're public speakers. We're in.
I'm ready to talk, but don't put me on a ladder.
No.
I'm almost 6'4", and I get scared walking sometimes. I just kind of crouch down.
Paul, seriously, we went to New York many, many years ago, and I was just like shaking to get off the elevator and hugging the post because fear of heights. But I don't really mind flying. You know what I mean? I
don't mind flying as much. The takeoff is my worst part.
Yeah, well.
But then after that, I don't care. But nope, I'm the exact same way. I went to a little obstacle course with my kiddo, a little zip line course. Mm-hmm. I got to the top, couldn't move.
Oh.
I couldn't move.
Yeah.
I literally froze. I turn into a different person when I'm up high.
Right.
I don't ride roller coasters because of this. I can't.
No.
My body will not allow me to do it. People are like, man, just fight the fear. I'm like, but I don't need to.
No, that's not a need. I don't have to do that.
I'm climbing up on poles, and if somebody gets up on top of a pole and can't get down, there are people I can call for that.
Cats in a tree. We can find.
We can find you a fireman to do that.
Fireman. But seriously, I kind of equate that height and the fear of public speaking, which I don't get. You don't get it at all, 100%. But yes. So yes. But then we get into that losing someone in your life. So I had that. The people that I interviewed this for, the losing someone in their life. And then Paul, you're in your 30s. So Paul
Geez, you just put all my business out there. Oh my gosh. Some people say I look like I'm 28. Dang it.
Oh my gosh. You look 28. But okay. So when I asked for yours, I text Paul this morning. I said, okay, so what's your top 3 fears? And your first one was?
Failing my son.
Failing your son.
And that kind of, that encompasses a lot. Mm-hmm. Not being able to provide for him.
Yes.
Not being able to give him something. We talked about this because it has a lot of different parts to it. Not being able to give him something to be proud of with me. When I lost all my weight when he was first born, I did that because I wanted him to be able to look up to me. Mm-hmm. And I want I want him to be able to have something whenever I'm dead and gone. I want him to be able to have something that I helped, whether he can run, company he can run, sell, whatever, but I want him to be able to have something that I can leave him.
Right. A legacy.
Yeah, I want him to have a legacy. I'm trying to build an empire that way he has a place to live and he has his own castle that he can create. He doesn't have to do what I do.
Right.
But I want him to be able to have something.
Yeah. And so your fear is not being able to do that.
Correct.
So, and Paul answered me pretty quickly this morning. I had another friend that I reached out to as well. And it was like, boom, 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 very quickly. And he said, now what, if I think about this long enough, if I think about it, it would change. And this morning I was talking to Sam, my trainer, and we were aligned this morning. And he said, what's yours? And I said, fear of failure. Fear of failure. And then I talked about all of these, after talking about all these things with Greg. Okay, the fear of failure is a separate type of fear. And I wish I was a psychologist and I could really psychoanalyze myself and give the right vocabulary. Maybe somebody can, but that fear of failure is definitely a fear of mine. And it encompasses a lot. But, then I was telling Greg, no, my number one fear, now at 50s, I jumped from the 30s to the 50s. I'm going to go back to the 40s. But the 50s, having a daughter, my daughter, turns 21 next Wednesday. Okay. My fear is, first of all, you're not supposed to lose children. You're not supposed to lose. I've seen many of my friends and some family members that have lost their children. It's not supposed to happen that way. Good grief. God bless you. But if I died, I just worry so much how my daughter would be affected, and my husband. My husband is old enough that he's lived through many phases of life. He's going to be fine. He will remarry. I feel strongly about that. And I need to leave some notes for somebody. But anyways, so but just the fear of leaving my daughter, losing a child would be number one by far. But that other fear, I'm going to get to that in just a minute. Okay, so Paul, we talked about failing his son. And would you, after me talking about all these things, would you change any of this order? You said failing your son, not reaching your full potential, and then death. You did say death.
Well, honestly, I'm not really scared of death myself because it's inevitable. It's going to happen. Mm-hmm. It's one of those things that either you can accept or live under the thumb of your entire life. Right. So I accept it. Now, I don't want to die early, mm-hmm. right? And it has nothing to do with me. It has everything to do with my son.
Right.
But losing my son, oh my gosh.
No.
I wouldn't I wouldn't know what to do.
Yeah.
Because I see him every day and it's just like that's what keeps me going. And to go to what you were just saying about failure, mm-hmm. It's interesting because there are two kinds of ways to look at failure. You have the people that are terrified to fail, right? Right.
That's me.
I love failing.
Oh, stop it.
No, I do. Because if you can accept failure, then you will succeed.
Well, I do accept it, but I don't love it.
Well, I like it in a way for a learning part. Now, I don't be like, hey, let's fail today. Right. But in a way I am. I'm like, let me fail in something. That way I can learn how to do it better or learn what not to do.
Okay.
It's kind of like when people sit and feel bad for themselves having a divorce or a marriage that didn't work or a relationship that didn't work. But think about it on the brighter side. What did you learn from there that you will no longer tolerate? Mm-hmm. Because I've been married before, mm-hmm. And I am divorced.
Right.
And I learned what I didn't want.
Right.
And what didn't work.
Exactly. Okay. Yes, you're right. So once upon a time, I had a business opportunity, probably 15 years ago, had a business opportunity, Paul. And this person came to me and everything was on the table. I mean, we were getting close. And Greg asked this gentleman, he said, how have you failed? Have you ever failed in your life? And he said, no, I've never failed. And Greg was so taken back after failed marriages and, almost bankruptcy and fear of losing your business and just the failure of different feelings. And so Greg looked at me and he said, okay, we're done. We got up and walked out. He said, I don't want to do business with anyone that says they've never failed. That guy has a divorce under his belt. He's lost a business. He's lost a restaurant. So it was interesting because every time I failed, and I think this is where you and I we are resonating. Every time I failed, I have learned from my mistakes. Now, sometimes early on, I didn't facilitate those mistakes as well as I should have. But I do learn from my mistakes. But, I worry about failure. And I think that's that, me, that feel that I want to please people too. So, but yeah, that failure. Yeah.
And I get that, Thomas Edison, there was a quote and he was asked, he was like, I'm not going to say it's verbatim because I don't know it verbatim, but it was something to the effect of, how does it feel to fail 10,000 times while creating a light bulb?
Oh, right.
Right. Mm-hmm. And he goes, fail? He goes, I didn't fail. He goes, I just found 10,000 ways that didn't work.
Okay.
He goes, and which made me realize how close I was to success. Mm-hmm. The people that give up after failure never understand how close they are to success.
That's true.
Because they give up. So I saw that recently again, and that resonates huge with me because in life, you have one life. You have one set of years, undetermined set of years, to do everything you possibly can to be and feel successful, right, or to do whatever goals and meet those goals.
Sure. And
if you give up, you're losing the one thing in life you cannot get back, which is time.
Right.
And is losing that something, the most precious thing in this world, not kiddos, because that's precious to me, but time is the most precious thing. Mm-hmm. Because that's time with family, time with everything.
Of course.
Is that worth just doing nothing?
Right.
And
right.
It's not.
Right.
I would rather fail my whole life, but still push forward. Now, I don't mean like drugs and alcohol fail. You know what I mean? I mean like try and fail,
exactly,
than just be a failure.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Because I mean, it snowballs. Because then
sure.
my son thinks it's okay to fail.
Oh yeah.
And my family can't be like, man, you know what? He may not have reached the full potential, but man, he tried.
Exactly.
And he busted his butt.
Right. Which that brings, your kids are watching. We said this like during the anxiety podcast, but so in the 40s, a friend of mine, she was expressing to me, she goes, you know what? The kids are watching everything we're doing right now. They're home. We're not going anywhere. I mean, they are in full quarantine. They're watching. She said, I'm afraid I'm damaging my children's lives. I mean, and that is a healthy way to look at it. I mean, of acknowledging, Kennedy, Greg and I got into a political discussion, and I can't stand political discussions. And so we got into a political discussion last night, which we were disagreeing. And Kennedy asked me, are we all fussing? I said, no, we got into a discussion. But then I was like, oh my goodness. So she's in my home. She's listening to everything we're doing. But I don't ever want to think we don't fuss. Don't get me wrong. I mean, there's those children that graduate college and their parents divorced and never saw them fuss one time. So then there's that, but I digress. But in their 40s, so, the 30s where you are, Paul, and then where Hillary, where we were talking about her and then public speaking, but the 40s with my friends there, I'm afraid of losing my job. I mean, this is real. You're so invested in a job. Now let's think about this. Paul, you and I are freelance and we work for ourselves basically.
Right.
Okay. Can you imagine those out there that are having to write their reviews right now, that they're not seeing their supervisors, and the fear of losing a job right now in your 40s. Okay. No, that's
terrifying.
That's terrifying, you know? And of course you and we're trying to build and brand and everyone is, but it's just that you work for a company, you have insurance, you have benefits, and then I just like, oh my goodness, you know, but back to the way the world may change and virtually, but you know, and I worry about people too. Do we really need these people? You know, and I don't mean to be negative, but it's real. And this fear is 1000%, especially in that age group, 30s, 40s, and 50s, of course, 50s.
Well, as you get older, you start thinking about, you know, I can't work forever.
No.
You know, my body and my mind and stuff won't be able to do it, especially if you're in a labor-intensive job.
Oh, gosh.
You know, and you're just like, oh my gosh, what if my body gives out and I can't do this physical labor anymore? You know, and that's a fear, because I hate to say this, but it's so true that in a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot, but in some industries, it's very age prejudice.
Yes,
it
is.
I mean, and that's not me stating what I think. That's statistically correct. I mean, you know, that's I hate that. It's just kind of a trend that happens. I've seen it happen. I've been a hiring manager before, and I wanted to hire somebody, and I had to get it approved from a higher up, say, hey, this person is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're in their late 40s, early 50s, and they'll probably have more health issues because of their age.
And they want more money. Because those are more money.
Yes.
I mean, obviously, but the mindset.
So the fear that these, I say older, but they're not that much older, of these 40s and 50s year old people, I mean, that's an okay fear. I mean, that is a fear that is warranted because of the way that things kind of work. And it's sad. I just, you know, fear, I learned this a long time ago. It's, you know, fear stands for false evidence appearing real, right? The acronym for.
Okay, wait.
Right.
Say
false evidence appearing real.
I love that.
Because what if there is one thing in common with every fear? Do you know what that is? Not knowing.
This is true.
Because you can't fear something that hasn't, that you can't fear something that is currently going on.
Right.
Now, you can fear the pandemic, but at this exact moment, I can't fear what the changes will be. I don't know. So it's that unknown.
The unknown.
That we're scared of, because it's, yes, you can be scared in a situation, but it's not the situation, it's the aftermath. It's like, in 1 second, am I going to drop dead?
Right.
Or if I climb on that ladder, am I going to fall?
It's You're going to be scared. Right. So if you think about fear, it's false evidence. So when you think about the false evidence, that'd be like, you know, going to the courtroom and being like, yeah, I think I found some good stuff. All right, guilty. Right.
You know, that's foolish if we think about it like that.
Right.
But we bring it back into our own lives. And if we don't truly know, then what do we have to fear?
Right.
We have what our mind creates and what historical data may bring, and it may be a legitimate fear, but if we run on that false evidence, then that is very debilitating for our psyches and our lives and our businesses and our self.
Right.
So think about it like that. It's just, we fear things we don't understand or know. But if we live in that fear of the unknown, then we can't live in the fear. We can't live in the present of what we do know. Exactly. And it stops us from moving.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Well, I have to laugh too at one of these things. My friend said she's afraid of getting fat. So you can do something about that.
I get it. I get that fear because I used to be giant.
Oh my God.
Every time I eat that cookie, I'm like, what if I get back to 300 pounds?
Yeah, that was a joke. But no, seriously, you know, that there is a lot of food going in and out, and alcohol, as we talked about it earlier. But, you know, the people that, and I try to help, because the people that are really worried about heart health and disease and that fear is, you know, I've brought up many times before, do we God gave us one body. I'm going to go back to that. I say it all the time. God gave us one body. Are we taking care of that body? Are you taking care? Are you sure that you're afraid of heart disease? So you have to think through that too. But it was interesting seeing all this, and going up to the 70s. The first one, my dad is losing a child. Oh my gosh! I mean, that would break him. He and his significant other were talking to me about this, and of course, cancer, and just frightening at the age of 70. And a lot of these demographics, even the young ones, still finances are now as you're younger, you certainly can. Greg, it's interesting. My husband, he's not afraid. He's like, you know what? I've been broke and I've started over, and I've been broke and I've started over. And he does say now, let me tell you what, after retiring, busting it for so many years, since he was 13 years old, going to college, building a company and selling a company, he goes, wouldn't this just suck if I got sick here right after, within 6 months of me building and then retiring, and then boom, it's over. He's a big joker, but that's a lot. He's not afraid of making it again, but he's like, okay, I'm kind of done here. We laugh in our household because he's done with career, and here I'm going, go, 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 go. But you know what? My dad, being in the 70s, this was an interesting one. He was afraid, has the fear of a major attack on a country. And I need to talk to my dad. Are you talking about the attack we are having right now? Or he's seen many wars. Are we talking about seriously an attack on our country? And I asked my very politically minded husband this question. I'm not going to even talk about what he said. So he's not afraid of attack on our country. So that was super, super interesting. But all those different demographics, isn't that crazy?
It's interesting, the similarities of fears, but the differences in the meaning behind them, right? Fear of death. But when you think about fear of death, are you fearing dying early? Are you fearing of dying of cancer because your family had it? So
good point.
It's interesting to. I think that was an incredible quick study that you did, because the one thing that people need to understand, especially right now, is that we're all on the same playing field as a country, as humans. Sure. Because any of us can catch this, any of us can hurt from this, and any of us could lose a lot from this. Some can or have lost more than others. Yeah. And that's so sad. But my mom always taught me was keep my side of the street very clean, and always be compassionate and empathize with anybody you possibly can, because right now is when our friends and loved ones need it the most.
Oh, absolutely.
And don't think that you're above or below anybody, because right now with what's happening, it's not a money thing. It's not a war thing. It's a virus. Right. The viruses aren't prejudice. No. They're not racist. They're not sexist.
Yeah, they don't care what religion you are.
Doesn't matter. That doesn't matter what religion you are. If you have a religion, yeah. Seriously. So as you can see, we're all in this together. Doesn't matter black, white, red, green, yellow, orange. Doesn't matter, because this can hit anybody. Right. So right now is the time to know that we're all on the same level playing field, and we need to support and rise up, because we can beat this. We will beat this. Right.
Absolutely, we'll beat this. I'm hoping by the next time we record a podcast, we beat this. But I'm going to be an optimist like my husband. Not as much of an optimist as my husband. He's a big optimist. But talking about fears, so those are very, very serious fears. Those are, I go into, I have this fear, and we were talking about this morning. Greg and I were talking about this morning. Sometimes when I have some people in my life, I mean, it could be anyone in my life, but the majority of the time it's like my supervisors at different companies. Let's spit this out here in a minute. The supervisors in my company. So they say, hey, Tiffy, I need you to swing by my office. I need to talk to you. And I immediately go, oh my gosh, I think the worst. I go the other direction. I'll get an email. Hey, we need to meet. What does that mean? I mean, my husband saying, hey, when you get back from reporting your podcast this afternoon, can we talk? No, tell me now. What did I do? I have this crazy, and I don't think so. I asked Kennedy about it, and she goes, Mom, every time you say, hey, I need to talk to you, what did I do? And so I'm wondering, do you all feel that way? Am I the only person that feels that?
Do.
Do you really?
All the time. But once again, it's that false evidence appearing real because we're guessing. Now, our guess may be right.
I think there's some insecurity too. I do think there's some insecurity, and I know I haven't done anything wrong.
Exactly. It's the insecurities of just, a lot of some minds don't think that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's the people that have the underlying issues just in life, period.
Right.
Because like I do,
Mm-hmm.
I it's not insecurities in that place of my life, but it's something else that kind of just trickles over,
right,
bleeds over, but I am the exact same way. Can we talk?
No,
I don't want to. Tell me right now. I'll ruin the whole day's ruined if you don't tell me right this second.
You know what? And I am so guilty of doing that. I mean, I've done that to you. I'm going, hey, can we meet? I mean, but I don't.
And every time I'm like, oh no.
And I don't even know that. But why don't I reverse it and go, why? You know what I'm saying? So that is a huge fear of mine. So but it's. And that may go into my fear of failure, but I'm looking at these serious, like these top 3 that I polled and the research that I did. Those are just very serious fears. But then you start thinking, well, oh my goodness, if somebody says I'll never forget my boss at a company I used to work to. She's like, hey, can you swing by my house before you leave? It's 10 a.m. I'm not leaving till 5. I'm coming now. Just what did I do? Let's just get this knocked out. So that is a crazy. I don't know if that's a fear or a panic. Is that the same thing?
It's anxiety, fear,
anxiety,
irrational thoughts. I don't know. I'm the same way though. I'm the exact same way because you and I are people pleasers.
Yes,
but not where we let people walk on us.
Right.
We want to please everybody because we are just pleasers of the general public.
Sure.
But it's like, oh no, are you not pleased? Oh my God, what did I do wrong?
I know. What did I do wrong? I'm thinking, what did I do? What did I do? So then there's this other fear that this is funny because I was listening to a podcast the other day and she was talking about going into a situation, which this is not the same situation, but a situation where, okay, so I was invited to play Mahjong last June, April, May, June. So I've had my Mahjong sisters on here. So Dawn invited, she called all the other 3 and invited us. And, it was right when we were just like, are we going to do a podcast? Are we really serious about this influencing? I'm just busy. I'm still working for a few other companies. I'm super busy with that. We're remodeling house, blah, blah, blah. So I'm busy is the bottom line. So I'm like, okay, sure. So we're trying to figure out because we had to have 4 lessons that were mandatory by our master Mahjong. Okay. So I'm like, oh my goodness, when are we going to do this? So, Dawn was like, we're going to do it on this day and this day at 3:00 or 1 to 3, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, I can't do this. So thinking about it. So the first time I go, and my sisters, I love you, but just hear me out. And I want you to know that fear's in the back. So the first time we go, we get to the Mahjong master's home and we sit there and I'm just sitting here going, oh my, I'm not going to say what I'm thinking, but oh my gosh, this is just a root canal. It's just like, oh my goodness, I'm just looking at this. I don't understand it. It's so difficult. I knew one of the girls and the others. I'm just like, we're all making tiny, small talk and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh gosh, this game's so hard. So the next week, okay. And the master goes, she said, now you're all going to not want to come the next 2 times because it's so difficult. And I'm like, great. All right, fine. That's awesome. So the next week comes, I'm like, see, same BS here. Don't want to do this anymore. I like y'all, but I just don't want to spend, 3 hours a week with y'all. Don't want to do this. So, and we go on. We committed to it. So I didn't even go. I was so committed. I changed our trip to Cabo. Greg and he surprised me. So 3rd time, go in. I'm like, this is so hard. My brain won't function like this. I can't stand it. But what I was thinking is, I can't do this. Mahjong is so difficult. I cannot do this. So I don't like this. I don't like meeting once a week for 3 hours. I don't. So fear of failure, there it is. That fear of failure, again, with Mahjong of all things, was resonating with these groups. And then week 4, I was in. I still don't know how to play Mahjong very well, but I was in because I look around and went, these are my people. These are my people. I love these women. I've made some of the best friends of my life, but it was like I had to control that fear. I had to make it real. And I did make it real. I'm like, I don't like this. This is not fun to me. We have to dress up every week, look like $1,000,000. But that was that real fear, right? But I mean, I had all these scenarios created and I was trying to create a way to get out of doing it. I was trying so hard to get out of it. And
already making the excuses.
I was making I made all these excuses. And now everyone knows how much I love Mahjong and my sisters. I love them so much. But I was talking myself out of there because it was that fear of failure.
Well, it's interesting though, because, I love public speaking. I love performing. I love all of that. And people are like, well, how do you do that? Because I wasn't always like that. I had to get used to it, and it's almost like telling yourself that you're happy when you're sad to kind of trick the mind into starting to move towards happiness. Now, it doesn't fix you.
Sure.
But it moves you towards happiness, right? So what I did whenever I was trying to get over the fear of performing or public speaking is, what I was doing and what was wrong is I was thinking that everyone that I was in front of was above me. And what I mean by that is that I was giving them the power to judge me and have it hurt me.
Okay, wait. When you say above you, like over you, or like smarter than you, or
just better?
Better than you.
Because they were in front of me and I was performing to them.
Better singers or whatever.
Better
the case,
singers,
whatever,
talkers,
speakers.
judgers. It didn't matter to me, So that was how I looked at it wrong, right? Instead of looking at them, we're on the same level playing field, And once I told myself, I was like, listen, whether I'm driving, whether I'm walking, whether I'm singing, whether I'm talking, whatever, people are going to think one thing or the other.
Sure.
So why not do something that they're going to already talk about me for? Right. So why not do what I love?
Right.
Or do what gets me further? So public speaking, you go up there, you talk to everybody, and if they don't like it, oh well.
Right.
It's like, I can't be perfect in every form.
Right.
But if I think of them on such a higher level, then that's scary.
Right.
Like going to a CEO of a company whenever you're a new hire, being like, my game plan is this. No.
Right.
You know your game plan. You've been hired for a reason.
Right.
They may make more than you. They may have more power in the business, but they're not a better human.
Exactly.
And that's what we have to get past, is that we all bleed the same blood. We are all human. They just either worked harder or were placed there or they earned it, whatever. They're there. Some people are there they shouldn't be, but I won't talk about those people.
Right.
But, just try to put yourself in that mindset of being on the same level playing field, because you're all human. Just go out there and do it, and you're going to get judged no matter what. So you might as well do something that you love.
Right. That's true. Well, you know what? I want to wrap this up by saying this, that you remember the first time you did something that you were so afraid of doing. Just think of something that was I say Mahjong. I think about, we've been on a sabbatical due to COVID for a while. I'm scared to death of going back and playing Mahjong. But you think about something that you did for the first time, and you were so nervous and so scared. And I always tell people, you know what? It always gets better. It really does, especially with practice. So hopefully we'll combat those fears, just keep getting better. And I appreciate those of you that gave me your top fears and opened up your heart and your minds to helping me do this podcast today. And everyone, thank you so much for listening. Please go rate and review this podcast. That helps us so very, very much get up in the ranks. So rate and review if you don't mind. And I appreciate you listening, and everyone stay safe, be healthy, don't be afraid, and take care of each other. Have a wonderful day.